Okay, we're live.
Wait, we're live?
Welcome to SonarFeed, episode 233. Real sonar, fake feed. I'm your host tonight, Dave Clark, at Better Than. To my right, maybe your left, maybe you're right.
Tom Biro, a.k.a. Bougie Hooli. To my right. I think that's what this is, right?
Since when is Dave the host?
He doesn't know.
Okay. Mark, a.k.a. SSFC Fody 13. Across from me behind the computer.
Yes, this is Adam Weigel.
Welcome to Sonar!
What the hell?
What episode is it?
233.
233! We're in the house!
What is that garbage hat you're wearing?
This lovely hat along with this beautiful scarf.
Chivas USA is done, man.
Hey, this
Oh.
Chivas Guadalajara, my friend.
Since you just
Guadalajara.
arrived, do you want to tweet that we're having a show?
Guadalajara. I sure can.
Yeah, get on that.
That's you go.
You have how many hats? You have how many hats?
This is my only Chivas.
Like an
No,
unlimited
but how many
number of
hats
hats.
do you have?
I probably have like 40.
So you have like 39 others that you could have worn
Yeah.
other than that
Yeah.
awful hat.
This beautiful fitted Chivas Guadalajara hat. I wish I had the equivalent in fitted Sounder hats.
Oh, yeah, no, they don't do
But
fitted.
they don't do that.
Anyway, we were talking to Adam, I think.
Yep, I'm here.
Fit
What are you
said
doing?
heads.
I'm trying to get all your guys' audio level because when Hugo sat down, it just kind of threw everything.
I did not shout loud
No,
enough.
no,
when
he was a
when
lot
we tested
louder.
that
No.
microphone.
Exactly.
It was just a disaster. So down the end, Ugo, who are you again?
Yeah. AKA Mi Vida Seattle, otherwise known as Hugo Garcia, at your service. In Spanish, we say a sus órdenes, at your orders.
Take off that hat.
And
Dude, are you crazy?
finally,
Asus
A
Órdenes.
sus órdenes.
and finally, off camera,
Yes.
tonight is our special guest. He goes by the name Real Doc, fake name. If you read Sounder at Heart, he's published a couple of stories for us.
Wait, there's
Well,
comments?
and does comments as well. And he's here to talk about, well, an injury and himself. Real Doc, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Doc.
Gracias, señores. Un placer. Mucho gusto.
El placer es todo nosotros. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Un verdadero placer tenerlo en nuestra presencia.
Igualmente.
Oh, good, good. This will be a show where I know even less of what's going on.
This will be
than
good. So,
usual.
like, a few of us will talk,
and I'll
and
just-
everyone else will just nod.
Yeah.
So that'll be
Me
good.
gusta esa idea.
Hugo. Cuídate ese horrible sombrero.
Do you want me to translate that into Spanish for you?
or at least not Google Translate Spanish.
Oh, my God. No mamation.
I'm just gonna be like-
no mamation.
I'm going to be like
So-
Data for the rest of this
So
show.
before
just-
we get into it, thanks for joining us online and in the house.
Yeah.
We should give a shout out to Jay, who's usually here, but apparently has some sort of plague. So he chose not to get us all ill.
Thank you.
Appreciate
we appreciate
that. Just
I'm
get-
pretty sure if there
just
wasn't
get your sister-in-law
if
and
there
your wife
wasn't
sick.
a doctor here tonight, he might have shown up.
It's possible.
I think he was being polite. So anyway, so thanks to the Berliner. You can
Third and Main,
also,
downtown Renton.
ahead of the curve.
Woo.
You can learn more about which bar is paying Mark this week based on what hat he's wearing today. So I guess shout out to Atlanta Crossing
And Gareth.
and Gareth for the AC did host a great event last week. The result of the soccer game wasn't so awesome, but we did release new ECS
Oh.
beer.
By the way,
Did you have it?
a couple of them.
Yeah.
Well done.
You
Well
pleased?
done. Well done, Hellbent.
They do a very good job.
Sweet.
That's Hellbent's new Amber, right?
Yes, it's called
Capo's
Capo's
Choice.
Choice.
Is it kind of like Dos Equis Amber?
No.
No.
And by kind of
No.
like you mean it's an amber. They're both
Well, no.
beers.
Okay. But it's not a darker.
The primary difference being
It's like a medium amber. It's very drinkable.
it's an amber ale. Dos Equis is an amber lager.
Yes.
So
Made differently.
So it would not go well in a michelada.
No.
That's really what I wanna
No, it would not go well. in
don't
a
do
michelada.
that.
Okay.
Don't do that. Last year's beer, sure. This one, not so much.
Okay.
It will go
Anywho.
great during the first and second halves of said Sounders games at CenturyLink Field.
Which was the idea, was something you could drink more than 7 of.
Thanks.
It's kind of the limit.
Thanks
Like,
for
normally
helping
you're
me.
like, oh, it's, could you have 2? Yeah, no, could you have 18? Yeah, and if the answer is maybe, then you go for it.
Yeah, thanks for
We
helping me
did-
budget this year.
They're actually really good. And not to say that the other breweries that ECS has worked for in the past are at all bad or have been challenging.
Yeah.
But the fun thing with Hellbent is they've tried so many different things that they've let us say, okay, we're sort of going with this profile, but sort of like this, and we're tweaking the alcohol or using slightly different hops, and they've been really fun to work with for a couple years. So
Nice.
so far so good.
Thank you.
And if you can have 18 beers in a match, I see no potential downsides.
I mean,
I,
right?
I would
Right.
strongly recommend that you drink wisely
Doctor approved.
and
Doctor
responsibly, and
I'm putting that in my profile.
have
Doctor
an Uber
approved.
or other
Yes.
transportation.
Yes.
Please,
you're-
God, yes.
Like even at that 7 number.
I have to tell you,
Not
the
just the 18
the
number.
1 o'clock kicks and then the couple of like drunken doubles that exist this year. What do we have? 7?
Can we
6?
talk about that one later, by the way? The special one?
the?
Rosé all day.
Yeah,
Rosé,
we are definitely going to talk about that
Yeah.
because that is going to be wonderful. So
Sign me up twice.
Yeah, we can do that.
I have a cider you need to try, by the way. Original Sin out of New York City. They do a dry rosé cider. And
Interesting.
Is it close to Rutgers?
Not just because it was
No.
from that area,
neck of the
Yeah.
woods.
but a dry rosé cider. I'm like, oh, Tom needs this.
There was something on Thrillist or whatever the other day about how like there's now a cider for millennials and it's a rosé, and I was like, or people who like good
Rosé
cider.
is good.
Wasn't that Matt Oak?
Stop. Anyway, Mark.
So what else happened on Thursday?
So there was a CCL match.
Rom won a Bud Light barbecue.
That wasn't where we were going, but
Oh.
good for Ron.
I won a soccer goal, by the way. If you need
Also
it for
not where
public,
we were
let me
going.
know.
Yeah. Also, so there was a CCL match. There was.
He was great, by the way.
Yeah, I was actually going to point that
That
out
was
first. So
amazing.
I watched the like punishment goal that they threw in like what was it, the 94th minute or something.
Right.
So we're just standing there waiting for the game to start, and I walk over to a table, and we're just sitting there, and I was like, oh man, oh, there's another goal, and it was not one that they needed, but they are very pleased.
Very much so. Very much so.
So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
I'm not.
Mr. Chivas de
I'm worried.
Guadalajara.
I'm very worried for this
For
week.
whom?
For our boys in green.
Yeah.
I am prepaid for this trip to Guadalajara, and I want to see my boys against my boys in my birth city.
I still want to know, who do you root for?
Both. It's like when you have 2 kids. Who do you choose?
So you're rooting for a
You pick one.
draw?
You don't just.
You'd root for a
You
draw?
pick one
You
and you
want
make
both your
the
children
other
to
one
succeed.
feel horrible.
You tell one that you pick them, and you tell the other that you pick them. That's what you do. So
Wow. Is that what Don Gama
And then you
say?
do the same with kid number 3 and
By
kid
the way,
number 4.
Neither of the
Years of
teams are your
experience.
child.
Yeah.
they're the equivalent in my soccer fandom.
You are a traitor.
What are you talking about? Don't you dare use that word on me.
All right. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah.
So the first half of the game was
First
pretty.
half of the game was pretty good.
They looked dominant for about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Trador, you mean?
Man, that first
Nicholas
goal.
Ladero was quite entertained by the keeper who kept leaving his box, and he's like, "Fine."
Okay.
Did you know there's a train?
He knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
that keep.
Oh, look.
And that was one where like you see stuff happening and you're like, oh, he's gonna swing, isn't he? Yeah.
Oh, and he swang all right, man. That was beautiful.
That was good.
so
That was a good
beautiful.
time. The conversations I'd had pre-match were, again, you don't go in looking ahead of people ever. Really, you should never do
Right,
that
no
because you
question.
never know, especially when you're playing against teams that are
Yeah.
in the middle of their season, as it was. But you expected to come out. People expected to come out of this series moving on. To the point where at halftime I had a conversation with someone, and it was basically like,
I'm getting my Guadalajara
if
tickets.
if they really put him away in this match, you could expect the Sounders to just bury them at home, like chase them down in the first half, end the game, and then pull people in the second half so
Kinda
that
like
they're ready to
Houston.
play on Sunday. Yeah, and that didn't really work out.
No, not even close.
So
not even close. They did not get the memo.
So not even just losing, but losing Jordan Morris.
Yeah. I mean, it was as bad as it could
It
go,
didn't
dude.
take most people, I thought. Like, we were in the bar, and we were like, done. Like, I felt like there was a high level of confidence that he was done.
It was nice
I
of them
took a
to stretch
different
him
attitude,
off.
and it was mainly because I didn't see Doc Morris do the press the knee multiple directions
Yeah.
test. And when I didn't see that, I was like, oh, this won't be terribly long. But I guess from hearing from some people who were down there, I guess he just did it off camera later. And once I heard that,
I mean, if he knows that he's coming off, there's no point in doing that at the
Right there.
moment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not going to change anything. I mean,
Right.
I've gone down with an ACL before, and so speaking from personal experience, when you hit the ground with that, you know, you're not getting back up. So there's nothing about, oh, my knee's a little bit stable, maybe they can. No, you get your MRI later. You plan your surgery.
yeah, they didn't do the MRI until today.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything day one.
Right.
So those of you watching at home that might have just joined us, that's the voice of Real Doc Fake Name, and he's here to give us medical
Perspective.
opinions, not
That are informed.
medical advice, right? Isn't that some kind of caveat like that? It's
Do
not
we
meant to be
need, like,
medical
terms
advice.
and conditions at the bottom?
Consult your own doctor before. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if this was like a call-in thing where people were like, so should I take this medication
So
with that?
Jordan-
Then, I mean, like, when I checked your rash earlier, like, that was
says you're the
strictly pro
same, not
bono,
me.
and yeah.
So Jordan,
Dude, I thought we had patient-client.
Oh, you?
Oh, man.
Do you remember signing
your
anything?
rash is not curable.
so
Damn.
Jordan should not take this as advice since we know he's watching.
Oh yes, Jordan is unquestionably tuned in to this, and no, I mean their staff
Schmetzer
are,
watches sometimes, so
their staff are total pros, and they know that this realistically this puts him out for the season.
yeah.
That we're not seeing him in 2018.
I've heard some stuff. Some people say that you can come back in like 6 to 9 months, and we've seen like
Nice.
those miracle speedy recoveries in the NFL.
Right? Where they put him in like oxygen tubes for
Yeah,
a lot of time.
so 9 months from now puts you at the very end of November.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
talking. You'd put a guy who hasn't played a single match minute in the Cup final.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I
Because
guess-
I mean, realistically, that's what it would be. And the problem that you have is it's not just a matter of can you recover to the point where you can run around and practice and play, but he's not going to be peak form.
So there
you
is
know,
no
and-
possibility that he could do an early recovery like in 6 months.
I think that if you did that, if you attempted to do a recovery early like that on a kid who, to be perfectly frank, is a little bit injury prone as it is, the problem is you haven't been working everything else out full tilt in that 6 months, right? And so you've got, whether you like it or not, you have atrophy in other places. And so his risk of aggravating another injury, blowing out his ankle because he doesn't have the full strength. And not that they won't be working on this stuff. I mean, the trainers will be working on everything else other than his knee as quickly as keeping that strength up as well. But the risk for re-injury of something else is so high to try to come back at that level.
I remember when I
For someone like me, it wouldn't matter. Like, sure, go run around. Yeah, you're fine. But at his level, at his speed, his risk of re-injury is way too high.
I remember when I texted you that the organization's like, he's out for the year. They're not even going to try it. Whereas, like, some fans were hoping for that 6 to 9 months kind of miracle thing. Your response, I think, was just one word: good. Like, no need to put that kind of pressure on anybody, and instead just heal what's right for a longer period of time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the risk of having an injury that takes him out farther into next season would, I mean, or something that just alters the whole direction of his career.
Right.
Not that this doesn't.
This
but
does, though.
No, that's what I'm saying. Not
Yeah.
that this doesn't. I'm not saying that, but alters it beyond already what this has done is so high that they have to plan for you've got someone else. You go get someone else. You don't worry about trying to bring him back. You don't worry about trying to rush that, and you make sure that when you do bring him back next year, he's 100%. But that you're not banking on having him for the last few months, or even crossing your fingers and hoping that he is.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Torres and how slow they recovered him. And I mean, when I saw him, this was a couple years ago, preseason, he wasn't even touching the ball, and he was far enough out from his his recovery.
That was about halfway through the
Basically,
recovery.
we're looking
Yeah.
to see
That was
next
about
year
5
around
months
this time is
Yeah.
what he's
after.
saying.
and he
We'll
wasn't
be lucky
even.
to
They
see
weren't
it.
even letting him touch the ball.
Yeah.
So
How long was he out for last season?
A lot.
I know, but the last
Who is
injury-
he in this case?
Jordan.
Jordan. He missed 76 days with his hammy, and he
Seems
played
longer.
through both ankle and hamstring issues early in the season. I still wish they hadn't done that because it took away his one world-class asset, is his speed. And he's
I thought Mark was going to say his left foot.
He's just an average MLS forward without that.
Say it like that. It
You must
hurts.
read the comments.
no, that's I agree with that. I mean,
I
that's
wanted to
that's
rest-
what
rest
he's
him for
agreeing
2
with my
weeks.
comment. I wrote that at some point, I'm sure, because that's 90%. Jordan Morris is a better forward than most, but is not a forward that you build your team around. You build your
He's not
offense
over.
around.
Yeah. I wish they just sat him for 2 weeks in April, 3 weeks. But they didn't.
So I have a question, sort of Jordan Morris specific in relation to recovery. Buddy of mine had brought this up. How would his type 1 diabetes factor into recovery?
Probably not much.
Okay.
I suspect that his control is locked down tight.
Right.
I obviously don't know the details of what his meds are and all of that, but he's far from the first pro athlete to have
Right.
diabetes, and so there's special considerations that have to go into how they manage the insulin, particularly around training times and all of that. But from a recovery standpoint, like I said, I suspect that his glucose control, his sugar control is probably, if it's not, he needs a new endocrinologist. But I suspect that it's not to blame the endocrinologist. I mean, he could fuck it up, but I suspect that he cares enough that he's also not.
He's
But
on
no,
top of it,
I suspect that his sugars are pretty pristine, and that wouldn't be a significant factor.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Speaking a little bit to the recovery, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, an ACL would be like, well, that's not the same player anymore. But we've seen from NFL players, we've seen from Torres even.
Is that better?
That's not quite as true as it used to be. The surgeries have changed, advanced a little bit more, and like the old thing was, like in the NBA, if a guy blew his ACL, he no longer had lateral movement. You'd just be like, he's not going to move side to side, so move quickly side to side, and you can beat him on the dribble now. But that isn't quite as true now as it used to be.
I think that has to do with the advances in from a physical therapy standpoint. I mean, the way that the types of exercises and the training that you see. Thanks for the beer. The types of training that you see folks doing after their recovery it's more complex, and it emphasizes a lot of that stuff. And they really prioritize building up a lot of that joint stability that you need with that lateral movement, that before it was more focused on just range of motion and muscle strength and didn't focus as much on that kind of collateral strengthening. So I think it's less of an issue. I mean, I think a year and a half to 2 years out from an ACL repair, you should reasonably, if someone's young enough, which he unquestionably is, you should be able to see someone back to 100%.
So basically, next summer, he should be pretty good.
Next summer to the playoffs somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes,
Second
I think
half of the
second half of next season, you would start to see him able to, barring the unforeseen or other injury, but would be able to have peak performance again. First part of the season, there's
No point. In,
you're pretty close, but I think that would build over those next over that the 12 to 18 month part. You see some additional gains, and then that 18 to 24. That's really when stuff's really at its peak in terms of someone's full recovery, and that's like the kind of thing you would never notice at a non-pro level.
Right.
So someone like
So when
you
I get my knee scoped at 42 and sitting in my car all day, I'll be able to do that in a few weeks.
A year out from your ACL, you'd be able to do everything that you did before, because what you do is not what he does.
Cool. Just takes a year to be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get both done, you could be dusting people down the field too, with a beer, or not.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Morris is obviously the U.S. team. It's almost lucked out in this particular case. Again, not that it's good for those that follow Team USA, that they're not in the World Cup, but this is one of those things that they would have been like, well, shit, guess we got to find another player. But beyond that, like, does his treatment and recovery, is that all dictated by Sounders? Or do you know these things? Like, is this something where, because he is a high-profile national team player, up-and-coming national team player, is there like a tug of war in who's in charge of a player's like recovery or?
Yeah, it's a good
that?
question. I don't know the details on that.
I'm just curious.
I don't know how they navigate that. I mean, just kind of extrapolating from things that coaches and training staff have said about other players in the past. I mean, they'll talk and be in conversation with, but I mean,
or maybe
Seattle from an orthopedic standpoint, there's not a better place to go for something like this. I mean, if you're Peyton Manning doing experimental stuff, God knows where, that's one thing. But an ACL is an ACL. It kind of doesn't matter where you go for that, in the sense of, are you at a top tier world class place that's going to
And we have
do that, and that's unquestionably what he would get. So they would want to know and want the reassurance. Okay, yep, you're doing all this stuff, but of course they're going to.
Right.
But if you look at like
consulted, not
Dempsey, for example, he got a second opinion, about his cardiac stuff.
Yeah.
Outside of the Seattle area, and he'd mentioned that in some interview,
I think
kind
it
of
was
in
Boston, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and again, and I don't know that they recommended necessarily anything different, and where he kind of ended up getting follow-up care, I don't know, but again, he would have had, the way he described it, he talked about getting this, they call it a loop recorder, but he talked about getting that little implant that measured his cardiac rhythms. That's a thing that they would have done pretty much out the gate here, but then once they get the information from that, he said, all right, well, let me go get another opinion, because they're telling him, hey, here's what we've got to do, and that's going to take you out for the season pretty much. Yeah, he's going to want to hear something other than that.
Right.
And that's understandable. And so I suspect that Morris could avail himself of that kind of thing. Doesn't he live with his
He
parents?
lives with
Yeah.
his dad, who is the team orthopedic surgeon
Seriously?
and one of the top ones
Yeah.
in the.
he's probably
Which-
covered.
So I'm pretty sure that,
which
like,
adds both a complication, but also makes things.
like going down the stairs at the house in crutches. I don't know if they have stairs, but presumably,
I'm
It's
gonna
Mercer
assume
Island.
they
running
probably
into
do.
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess.
Probably an elevator
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
It's probably not a little like 2-bedroom condo or
I
something.
mean, who
don't
doesn't?
know. Yeah,
So his dad probably knows several very good orthopedic surgeons.
including himself. Not that he would operate on his own son,
Yeah.
of course not. But still, he knows the best people. Like, there's no way he is going to let his son, let alone anyone else on the team, have anything less than the best possible stuff. But if anyone knows that, he lives with the guy who knows.
right.
Yeah.
So
So he's in the best of hands, in the best of care, and
And we're still not going to see him this year.
We're not going to see this.
It's not exactly the best of times.
Tom, you don't get to invite him into GA.
No, he can.
Well,
He just can't
technically,
pogo.
We could.
Wait, I mean, you could invite him,
Yeah.
but please don't.
We could also invite him to come on the show.
We could do that.
Oh.
He's got nothing else to do.
More free.
Oh.
I'm gonna call tomorrow.
They got nothing better to do.
Yeah, you do that. I'm not doing that.
I'll do it.
Also, not for several weeks.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
You mean you don't think he's going to want to come on Monday?
Do it. Hopped up on drugs? That'd be
So
great.
just out of curiosity, like this kind of injury, is it just an in the moment kind of thing? Typically, like you did something, it happens, or could this be drawn on like having hurt myself in various ways before? Like you hurt your foot at one point, you should have given it up. Then you start walking funny. Then you hurt your knee over time because you walk funny. Is this that kind of thing, or
Basically, the injuries that he had previous year contributed to this injury.
Yeah, that's the injuries that he had before. You know, I think we're far enough in the past that I don't think that they would have contributed. I mean, I was watching the footage of it, and again, I only had one view of it. I don't have it in slow-mo, close-up, and all this. So, you know, it's hard to see exactly
Adam could do that? He could, no.
what happened. I mean, zooming it in on my phone, but really the only thing would be if he had like an undisclosed other ligament or meniscus injury in the knee or something like that. But you know, his ankle and hamstring and all that's I think that's neither here nor there in terms of this actual thing. I mean, this can just happen. I mean, it's you get the right pivot shift, you know, foot plant, and you turn on it wrong and you blow the thing right out. What I would be interested to know, and not that I think they would tell us this, maybe they would, I don't know, is commonly people will injure things in addition to the ACL at the same time.
Oh.
Garth made statements today that there might be other damage, but in vague ways, because it didn't. What we're speculating from his statements is that there was nothing else on the MRI, but at the same point, they're about to open his knee up, and maybe you see things there.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on...
He's also a lawyer, so he tends to be as vague as possible.
Right. Yeah, I mean, commonly the medial collateral ligament, the MCL, and the medial meniscus of one of the
Unhappy
two.
triad.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah, it's called the unhappy triad because the three of those are often injured together.
Oh.
So if the
attention to
MRI
anatomy.
didn't show anything, it's possible that he could still have maybe some catching or clicking or something on exam that would suggest maybe a meniscal injury that didn't show up on MRI. But MRIs are pretty sensitive about stuff like that. And so I would think that what they might have seen was, hey, there's enough inflammation, there's enough kind of fluid around because of the ACL that maybe the other stuff is injured, but it's not quite as definitive from the MRI because maybe it's just kind of noise in the signal from other things. But I think it would not surprise me if there is at least some degree of additional injury to some of those other structures, and there's just enough room for him to leave that a gray area that he's opting to leave it a gray area rather than say definitively that it is.
And in MLS, we don't get the kind of details. Like in the NFL, they'll tell you, like, 3 weeks later, we reopened his knee because we found original damage, but we needed the inflammation. And they give you all the...
Speak to why they did it that way.
But
Yeah,
in
so
MLS...
we'll probably never know.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, unless it's a very specific type of meniscus injury, that they would then do a meniscal repair as opposed to just kind of trimming off the injured area. If they do a specific type of repair to that meniscus, then you can be non-weight bearing for a while after, as opposed to immediately being partial weight bearing. So totally off the foot for 4 to 6 weeks versus putting some weight on it, and so that pushes back recovery time, obviously, if you have to do that. But that's a very specific type of injury and one that they would have definitely seen on the MRI if it were there. And so that's something that I suspect is not the case. which means that it realistically isn't going to change the timeline.
Everything that's in there, they'll fix when they can, and
Well, so MCLs you don't generally fix.
Oh.
They
Yeah,
just
my
kind of
brother
scar
had
down
that.
into place, and that does the job. The medial meniscus, again, if it's causing catching or locking, that kind of thing, then they would kind of trim that down and make that smooth again. But then
Eric Freeberg had that. He was out like 6 weeks, I think. For
yeah.
the
So a lot of times
meniscus
when
thing.
people get their knees scoped, quote unquote, that's what they're talking about. Is there was some meniscal injury if it was just a scope, if it's not actual ligament damage or something like that. Which incidentally, for the people listening, if your knee hurts and does stuff, and then you go to your doctor, don't try to get an MRI and find out if you need your knee scoped, because if you're old, and by old I mean not actually even old, just like, retirement age from professional sports, you'll find something on the MRI, and scoping your knee probably isn't going to fix it.
So 28.
35.
28, you could probably, if you're having symptoms from it, you could probably do a thing.
But by 38,
38, if you're not having symptoms that are super specific to it, like I said, like locking, catching, buckling, and it's just, my knee hurts. Yeah, getting it scoped isn't going to make much difference if that's because
so much for public.
you get an MRI and you're like, oh look, your meniscus is frayed, and they go in and unfray your meniscus, and then you recover and do all this physical therapy. Turns out maybe if you just did that intensive physical therapy first, but it's that intense, but it's just nobody does that because they didn't just have surgery.
Right.
If you had surgery, you're kind of motivated for like, well, I guess I should probably do this shit.
So I'm not going to talk about my ACL because we could be here all night. But, dreading that future surgery.
Nope, we could probably talk about other ailments and just see if we could figure out
Yeah.
if he could help us.
That's-
Like my
Yeah.
elbow's been locking a little bit. I think I've got some bone spurs.
Is there
Well, he
exercises that we
kept
can do to
asking me
avoid-
about. So, if hypothetically, if the Sounders player had a rash, and
Mark has the mark.
hypothetically, I'm like, the Sounders player.
You told me the cream would work.
Jay,
You weren't supposed to drink it.
Oh!
you
Funny-
applied
High
the
five
clear
you.
and drank the cream.
Funny story about that. I had hot wings the other night and decided to get the 7 alarm at Wingdome.
Oh, there are photos.
There are photos.
There's a Snapchat story.
I ended up drinking ranch.
I believe the advice was chug ranch.
Yep. I did.
Fats.
Did it work?
It
Immediately.
mildly helped.
Oh, to be in my 20s.
Yeah, right? I wish I was.
Kids these days.
Oh,
Um,
that's right. You're not
JJ
lying.
says
not
we should
anywhere
change
near
the
my
show to
20s.
Scope Talk. Scope Talk. This is Scope Talk with Dave Clark.
So
You don't want that scope.
thanks for coming on.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I think that's probably an example of kind of why we wanted to chat with you, is because that level of detail is not what we commonly get about
Yeah.
injuries in sports.
We wanted to realistically crush our hopes in person.
Nickel for every time I crush people's hopes.
You've removed all gray areas.
All
for
gray
us.
areas. Done.
Which is
I mean,
good.
here's the thing. I maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
Don't
I'm
go
wrong.
back. Don't
I'm
go back.
wrong. No, I'm wrong 8 times a day. It's just probably this isn't one of them. Yeah, what if? But you don't plan your team around that. You go spend your TAM and get a proper forward who you can,
Or a DP. even.
Or all your money
whatever.
get
or whoever.
Chicharito.
But yeah, I mean,
Get
you
that
do
man
what you
over
got to
here.
do, and but you don't bank on this kid coming back this season. And you pick a player that if he gets a re-injury next season, God forbid, But I mean, how? If you look at time since we've signed, like healthy Morris versus injured Morris, realistically, you get someone that you're going to get some years out of with that money, because.
Oh my God, Doc, you're putting it down.
Like
You're putting it
80%
down.
of my conversations with Doc are just depressing injury news. It's
Yeah.
But-
Like our text thread is miserable. Like you just look at it, it's like
What's
it's literally
an
like,
emoji? Smiley face? What is that?
Oh no.
Yeah. That's kind of like Dave's text threads about most things.
That's fair.
Right?
No, but
That was
seriously,
me though.
some of the we're gonna get to the questions in the chat later because they are amazing. and they're all medical questions that you're not going to want to answer.
God damn it.
So,
I'm so glad I don't see the chat.
on the note about the future, and again, this isn't really asking you to speculate, but the first
That's what I'm here for.
The first thing that a few people were discussing on one of the Slack channels I'm in today was like there are a lot of people who look at Jordan Morris and say 2-3 years, he's either going to be here for good, or highest bidder is going to show up and Sounders are going to be dumb not to take the money. And like MLS is in this weird moment where when you have rock star players, sometimes you just need to play the long game. Garth, to me, is a long game player that I think he would be willing to say, wow, if I can get $10 million or whatever the number is for Jordan Morris, he's probably going to do it. And is this feels like one of those moments, not to say that players have not come back and been amazing in many, many other sports from an injury like this, but this may have now removed that piece from the chessboard at a minimum for 18 to 24 months because people aren't going to really speculate on someone like this.
Yeah, no club is going to make an offer till the end of 2019 at the
Right.
earliest. They're going to see, can he play a full season before anyone wants to spend money on him. I mean,
He's going to be 25, 26, too, about that time. And he won't have been in the most recent World Cup, and he won't be in an international competition that matters because they don't watch the Gold Cup. So the Copa Americana isn't until 2021.
20.
Isn't that the 2020 is the So then, 26-year-old Jordan Morris at that point, like, it was already. I think I wrote shortly after the World Cup thing happened, where we weren't going to the World Cup. The chances of Jordan Morris leaving then plummeted. Once he wasn't at that World Cup where he was young enough to be snatched up,
Right.
the chances of him leaving went way down. And now you throw this injury on,
It's even more.
you may have Jordan Morris as a 10, 11, 12-year Sounder now and just have him here for his career if he recovers in a way that he plays well.
And contributes.
well, yeah, I mean, if you want a silver lining, sure, there you go.
Dave just wants to
I
say.
don't know- I don't know that's a
Dave
silver
just
lining.
wants a Sounder, always a Sounder. That's really what's happening. right now.
I think that's true. That his market value has gone way down. His upside is probably appreciably lower from teams looking for someone that they can get who's 20 years old as opposed to however old he'll be when they would want to make an offer. So yeah, it increases the likelihood that we have him for the duration of his career, whatever that is, and that's great. I'm
Not the way we
also
want to see it,
someone
but-
who looks at players with injuries and thinks, God, I would hate to have to be, Garth or someone making these decisions about how much do you try to build around someone
Right.
who has a history of injuries versus saying, all right, I'm going to, give you a low ball offer because we'd like to keep you around, but I'm not going to spend my big money on you because I can't.
And you have free housing.
I mean, rent, yeah.
Dude, Brett is at home right now going, fuck those guys.
You're going to save so much money over the course of your life if you just live with your parents.
That's actually a fact.
That's very much a fact. But the low
How's it
ball
working out for you?
offer, right?
I've got 4 kids living with me still, so hopefully they'll
But
move out soon.
that-
They start
For
saving
20
all kinds
more
of money.
years.
But not for nothing, like MLS is still in a place where teams turn over heavy year over year. That, like, if we want to all be honest with ourselves right now, 2020 Jordan Morris right now is not necessarily a thing, which is really sad, I think. And that's the unfortunate part of anything like this is as much as I'm optimistic, I think he will come back and
okay,
be
man.
just fine. And frankly, if he ends up being our Jordan Morris. However, I've also seen just as many players, whether it's NFL or NBA, Dave talked about earlier, and I know technology and medical technology and whatnot has changed dramatically, but stranger things have happened. So it just really sucks because I think you look at the potential and realized potential and other of somebody like Jordan Morris, and it just sucks to like look at it and be like, wow, okay, we got another Roldan, and we've got like youth to build on and some smart veterans on the team, and he's a national team resource and so on, and then you're like, not for 2 years.
I'm just calling it now, man. He's 2019 Comeback Player of the Year.
Okay.
Which would be fantastic.
I mean,
Called it.
that worked for another guy that we on this show were like, I don't think he's ever playing soccer ever again. And that Clint Dempsey guy turned out to be pretty good.
He was all right.
Yeah. So, again, different thing. But it's one of those, like,
Hashtag
I wonder if it
2019.
it's sunk in because we've all been reading everything about it and we have just such significant access to these things. But at the same time, you're like, wow, I don't want to be Schmetzer right now because...
and Garth's a realist. I mean, I haven't spoken much with the man, but a couple years ago, he and I happened to be sitting on a plane next to each other, and I chatted him up a little bit. And
Did you have the window?
I did have the window,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, we chatted a little bit, and one of the things he said to me was, and this wasn't obviously in reference to this situation, but that he said, look, there's players that are older that people are going to hate to see go because you've had years with them. They feel like part of your family. They are part of the Sounders family, and they're great players and a great part of the community. But if they're not the future of the team, then you have to make tough decisions, and there's going to be players that leave that people are going to be really upset that they go. But that's a thing that's going to have to happen if you're going to build a team that's going to be competitive year in, year out,
Right.
and be able to make a run at the cup every year. Which, I mean, 2 years in a row, right? I mean, he's not wrong in his execution of that. I think that 2 years from now, and I don't know Morris's contract situation, and someone else might know that off the top of their head. Regardless, he's a realist, and I think he'll look at how next year goes, and he'll make those tough calls. And there's going to be a lot of people who won't like it if he lets him cut loose and say, but his upside. But if he doesn't feel like he can, I think
he's under contract through 2020.
Which doesn't surprise me.
Which would be perfect.
Right.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because they'll know.
By
Yeah,
the
you
next
could
year,
make the decision.
By the end of next year,
Yeah.
they'll know.
Well, you'll see it, which is good.
Yeah,
And again, that's not to like cut him off, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic about it, but like at the end of the day, this league has short turns on players, and you got 20-something people on a roster, and the next season you have 8
What does Chicharito do?
that stick around. You're like, that's a different thing. And NFL and other sports are brutal at the end of the day if you really start looking at full rosters. But starting 11s turn over year over year.
The optimist in me says, they give him this year off, fully recover. Don't try to cut corners. Don't try to rush him back. Bring him back next season. He's 100%, and we get a good, healthy year out of him. And there's great hope for the future for his career and for his role with the Sounders.
I just want him
they're
to
going
be
to be-
good and healthy at the end of the day. Like, that's all I care about.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So I think that's not an unrealistic hope to have.
Yeah.
That next year he has a full season and it's healthy.
I just think it's so hard to predict how anything happens these days. Not even player to player, but like how teams react, things that change, how the team does, what success they have this year or don't. If the team's wildly unsuccessful, what does that change? All of those things factor into this equation. I
What
think
also factors in is he's getting a wad of the homegrown player money.
very much.
And if there isn't anybody else that needs more than the minimum in the homegrown player pool, they actually don't need to cut him because they can't spend that money.
Which is great.
so. And
Seems like contractually we're not in that bad of a spot. Man.
so.
Yeah, I don't expect that to be the issue
You're not
right
gonna
now.
Boot him to sign Sam Rogers to a $200,000 contract because Sam Rogers doesn't need a $200,000 deal. Sam Rogers needs the $55K minimum. If they offer that to Sam, he says yes today, kind of thing. if you look down, Ray Serrano just signed with S2. In 3 years, he'll be 18. Do you need the 250 in homegrown money then? Maybe, but it's MLS, so there's probably like 7 250 homegrown pools by then.
Keep the microphone.
Yeah, got it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
So
Dave.
yeah, just another layer in this is because his bucket of money comes from
From a
this
different
little
place.
corner that not many other players have access to, and so few of them are worthy of getting that
Large
chunk of it.
Yeah, and I mean this is it's kind of way ahead of ourselves, right? I mean,
Right,
to
but
say,
this
I mean,
is the,
this
I know,
is
this is
November
speculation.
2019
Yeah.
This is
conversation.
yeah. I mean, replay this episode. Exactly. Yeah. And well, no, November 2019.
Well, yeah,
December
they'll be-
2019.
November 2019, when they should still be in the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so replay this conversation then and see where you're at. But I think it depends who we pick up, right?
Right.
I mean, if you pick up someone and they are just a goddamn rock star, and and the whole offense flows beautifully with them, then that takes a lot of the need to have someone else there. Or if you get someone and it's a total bust, all right, like now you're kind of looking more back toward
Right.
We'll see.
There's so many variables.
Yeah.
There's just so many variables.
That guy
I'm a
has been
doctor. I'm
on
not a GM.
so many teams.
More of a reason to add one more to the list.
Yeah. Let's not do that.
I wonder who Hugo wants.
I just
Uh,
felt the need to play devil's advocate because it's fun. Anyway,
The devil has enough advocates.
that is accurate. At least we didn't make what? At least we didn't
What is
make.
Mark doing?
I'm
what's
not
up, man?
sure.
Mark, don't distract Tom.
No,
He's supposed
no.
to guide and run the show.
Yeah.
You are the worst.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Were there more Morris-related, like injury-ish questions, or I mean, I'm just curious if there was other stuff that people want to know, like
there
specific
were-
to the injury or other stuff related on that. I mean,
No,
there's obviously
they
other
were-
players with
There were
busted
really
stuff,
questions
but-
about people's own medical conditions.
Well,
like,
somebody actually
will eating kale help me avoid Alzheimer's?
always.
And will I be able
Also,
to play
if
the
you wash it
violin
out with
again?
kombucha, and I have no one knows.
Chia seeds.
Nobody knows.
Will Bregel be able to play the violin again?
Is there a perfect number of tacos to eat for optimal health?
Perfect. Well, over what time period? Are you talking like
24-hour
tacos per
period.
day?
24-hour
period.
Yeah, what's the ideal taco per day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, on average, you want to
Depends
get
on
like
the tacos.
like 2 TPD. Now, a guy. I don't know how old you are, but this changes over time, right? As an infant, you actually don't want to give your newborn tacos. Turns out, I know.
you can puree them pretty well.
I know.
Trust me.
Newborn what?
Break it up.
What if you have like newborn manatees?
Is that
Yeah.
a new
food? People doctor, not a vet.
That's what I'm
But once that from ages basically like 1 to whenever your teeth go, 2 tacos per day average. Once your teeth go,
about to-
then you want to
Hugo's
drop that
gonna
down to 1
cry.
TPD.
You're talking 2 per meal.
He's
no
gonna cry.
average. I'm just
per
saying
day.
2
You
per
asked
day
taco per
average.
day.
Average.
2 per day.
Average though, you could not have tacos one day.
No, you're right. You're right.
What?
You're right.
Exactly.
You could have gorditos instead of tacos.
Like that week that you were sick and you didn't
Tostadas.
eat anything? You made up for it.
Chalupas.
Enchiladas.
Chalupas.
Yeah. So this is an important point of clarification here. Are we talking like American tacos or like proper like?
Proper
Street
carnitas or tacos
Okay,
de
like-
lengua, tacos de sesos, tacos
Like
de
the double
cabeza.
tortilla.
How have you mentioned so many
small-
tacos and not mentioned al pastor? I'm
Al
starting to
pastor
question your
también.
credentials
No,
right
no,
now.
I mean, there's a
Okay.
list of
Yeah.
preferred meats.
Oh yeah.
Al pastor is top 10.
This is a question.
Top 10. You bite your tongue, sir. Listen. We
Taco fight.
I'm gonna.
What was the steamed taco we
challenge
had?
him to something right now, if, with you all's permission.
A la canasta.
I don't mean to question your credentials, but right now,
Put that on.
I just think that if someone were to score a goal, then I might be able to call it for longer than you.
Oh.
This is a challenge.
That's exactly what that is.
Let's go.
Hugo,
yeah?
I think
When?
you just,
What time? What
Hugo,
place?
you just got dunked on.
Now.
Right now. Do you need me to like look up some goal footage and I can show it to you and then
No,
you could
I'm-
call the goal?
I'm ready.
Okay, so who has to go first? Do you want to flip the coin?
We're going at the same time, and whoever cuts out first
Oh.
loses like a little bitch.
Holy shit! This shit escalated hella quick.
I've got.
I'm sorry, you only put El Pastor in the top 10?
10?
We have a timer
That's a top 5
ready.
taco, son.
All right.
That's how we got the timer on camera? We're so technical.
Yes.
Okay, so
We're like Johnny
next-
Mnemonic.
It's next May, right?
What?
It's next May 2019. Jordan Morris debut.
Oh, he's setting up the goal.
3rd minute.
3rd minute, homie with the left chips somebody. And
From 40 out.
go.
¡Viva Jordan Morris!
Oh my god!
24 seconds.
I'm going to describe.
Hugo went 17.
Wow.
There was a moment
That
there
might
where
be a new
Doc
record.
leaned up on the table like this and just kind of smiled at Hugo while still giving the call. And I think that might have distracted Hugo a little bit.
Threw me
because
off. It threw me off.
It was just
I was not expecting a goal
was a-
lasso challenge. I give you props, dog.
that was a confidence move when
Yeah.
I look over and he just
Yeah, I was like, oh shit. Oh shit.
By the way, Hugo, that was a new record for you. 17 seconds.
We could probably go back in time and.
Are we talking goal
go
calls
over
or
that.
Mark was making a joke that you missed.
I'm not picking up what you're putting down.
So
Get a golasso, dog.
Dave got it.
this might be a new SonarFeed game.
A challenge.
I think so.
Do you know who's probably never going to win? Anyone else.
I don't know.
I look forward to because
surprised.
we're gonna have Pete Fewing on at some point this year, so I look forward to his goal call versus.
and let's just say, I mean, if I needed to go longer, I could have, son.
Oh.
So you go home practice and you let me know when you're ready.
Next show you're back, we'll do a rematch. How about that? That way we can make sure you come
You
back.
let me know when you're ready.
Let's do it.
Money's in the rematch.
I love it. I love it.
The best part about this is in the chat, Joe said, boys are so stupid.
She's not wrong.
Like at all.
Yeah.
So, Hugo, tomorrow at lunch you're required to have 2 tacos al pastor.
And that's it.
I
No mas.
might finish that before I get home tonight.
Just as a reminder of your law.
You're allowed to switch it up and do gringas. No, you don't like the queso? All right.
No tanto. No
That's all right.
tanto.
No one's perfect.
No tanto.
Taco talk. Does that mean? Should we run them now then, or
Preguntas?
do we want to talk?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Do it.
LFG.
Big Ear Tupac.
Tupac, bitch.
All right.
Favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Frozen Thin Mints.
Oh man. See, I was just beginning.
By
to
the way,
like
I
you.
picked up 5 boxes of Girl Scout cookies yesterday, all Thin Mints.
I need your
I'm not
medical
coming
opinion,
over.
dude.
Don't care.
Tagalongs count as protein bars since they've got peanut butter in them.
Only if you eat enough.
Okay, cool. I'm
What's
good
that
then.
magic
That is
number?
such a good
What's that
answer.
magic number?
Only if you eat enough.
So
1 box.
So fuck it. We're just gonna jump right in then. If you had to be in a bouncy house with a
Abraham
famous
Lincoln.
Okay.
We might have prepped him on that, but
They.
Abe Lincoln is also the most common answer for that.
With top hat or not?
Oh, we're going in there till the top hat falls off.
Okay.
Would he pop the bouncy house with his sharp elbows? No.
No.
Last meal.
Oh.
Last meal on death row.
El Pastor.
I know. and including drinks. Including drinks.
Yeah. I mean, Al Pastor and a bottle of mezcal.
I like that.
I need to drift
That's
off
a
of
top
this
10
because
meal.
I want to know his
I'll agree with
last
that.
meal if he was on Death Row Records. If you were signed to Death Row, what would your last meal be?
Depends when I was signed.
Let's go like peak Death Row.
Like peak death row? Well, shit, I didn't know about mezcal back then. Probably still would have been Al
Mezcal.
Pastor and a beer.
Okay, that's fair. Dave,
I don't know the answer to this, but I want to. The oldest aged liquor you've had?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because I know my answer, and it directly
let's
relates
ask
to.
let's add that to the
Ironically, this was a Calvados, which is an apple brandy.
Yum.
That was made the year that Abraham Lincoln died.
Wow.
what's your address?
I don't have it.
Oh, sorry.
Anymore.
Doc once said to me that I had to have.
Moving on.
Doc, one time.
That is not unprecedented. Let me just tell you. You walk away, sir.
Everybody's giggling and you know
He's
why.
like,
And it
I have
wasn't
heard and seen
All right.
far worse.
I love that you raised your hand like
Today,
Might
probably.
as well claim it.
That you were off camera and you acted like you were on. Anyway,
So
everyone's
my
like,
life.
what are you guys even talking about? So,
All right, 100,
I've got.
So-
I've got one.
most impactful purchase under $100.
Fuck you. That was my question.
Then ask it.
Most
Impactful,
impactful.
something that you
No,
use
this is Renton.
that's impactful to your everyday
ask
life
it.
for under $100.
Stethoscope.
Google it.
What? Oh,
Stethoscope.
Is that how you became a doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought one off Amazon. Turns out you can just buy that shit on
then
Amazon.
the-
And a
the
white coat.
white
I
coat, you
wandered
just
into a
walk in.
hospital.
it's like
And I was
every
like-
TV show where you just go into some closet that's open and grab a white lab coat
I've
and
been
you are
faking
in.
that shit ever since.
Oh, you want me to do surgery? Nah. No, let you do it.
Yeah, you do it. You do it. You. I want to see how. I want to see.
We're doing really good with this.
I'm
kind of
tired of this one.
when
Favorite book that you've read recently, and that's for Lisa.
Recently?
Yeah, when the last year.
That's not recently, yo.
Well, some people
depends
might
how
take
many
a few
books you read.
months, right?
Accurate.
Murakami short stories called Men Without Women.
Okay. What's it about?
Men Without Women.
I had to ask it.
It's one of my
Is that-
wife's favorite
When-
authors.
I got to stay on brand.
when the movie about
It's good
Doc's
stuff.
life is made, who plays you?
My friends would kill me if I didn't say George Clooney.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No question.
I'm going to give
No
you
way.
that.
Dude, I was going to say that from the get-go.
Mark earlier wanted to know if you know Doogie Howser.
Like in the biblical sense.
In the biblical sense.
One
I'm
should
so
be
happy
so
you were
lucky.
going there because in my head I was like, just say it.
What? Yeah. No.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
That's a no for me, dog. Which, by the way, have you seen that commercial with the dude from American Idol, Randy Jackson? Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
it's a good
It is
Geico
a good one.
Geico spot. Mark, you got a question?
Favorite
you
team in
have a
Liga
question?
MX.
I'm sorry. What?
Favorite Liga MX team.
That's
and
not
why
what I
is
know.
it?
Liga MX team.
Why is it Tigres?
And why is it Club America?
That you dare say that? That's
So I've
that
seen,
is not allowed on this podcast.
Well, no. So,
that
so I was
word.
actually gonna say Club America only because I've seen them play twice in person, and I haven't seen any of their teams. So, I mean, but I don't really have a horse in that race.
Favorite non-MLS team.
Oh man.
Anybody that plays Chivas.
I was gonna say whoever's no. Now I just want to like fuck with you all night.
Chivas USA.
Somewhat related.
Well, I mean, so actually, I mean, the answer is Fulham. Not that I ever get to see them play anymore, because now that they got relegated, right? But I mean, that's when.
You have to
I
find the
started-
stream of somebody else streaming it.
Well,
kinda thing.
so my buddy and I used to live in Boston, and we would watch.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Rutgers.
Dempsey.
Yeah,
When you-
yeah. So like I said,
Back
like
when
we
Full America.
yeah,
yes.
back when exactly, and so was pretty into that, and so I don't. I don't claim another team, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like I'm like, oh, I'm all
I
in
hate-
for this team
I
that
hate
I picked
people
an
who claim two
arbitrary
teams.
city. Like, if you grew up somewhere else, like, that's fine. But, like,
Wow.
to have just picked a city for no reason, like, and be, like, diehard about it, that's just kind of weird to me. I get it if you're just like, hey, like, I'm into that because I went and saw them once and it was, like, this amazing experience. I remember a great memory. But for me, it's literally Fulham because that's who, like, my buddy and I would watch.
And they had a bunch of Americans on the team then.
Well, and that's why we were watching them. Yes.
So back then, what team or place that you watched a soccer game would you be most surprised that you actually did that? Like if you told you from college, I just watched the soccer game in such and such stadium, and that person looks at you like you're insane.
That would be any of the times when I was in Brazil for the World Cup.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I told my boss that I would
Pat
quit my
myself
job.
on the back,
No,
motherfucker.
I literally I told my job I was like a year into my job at that point at the hospital I was working at. He's like, so where do you see yourself like a year from now? Like, where are you gonna be? And I'm like,
Brazil.
at the World Cup in Brazil.
You're
He's
like, Recife.
what? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be taking like 3 to 4 weeks off, and if I can't make the trades to make that happen, like schedule wise, I'm going to quit my job, and I will hand you my resume to reapply for my job because I want my job. But I am doing this. This is some bucket list shit, and it hurt my brain.
Have you met the Sounders fan who literally rode a motorcycle from Seattle to Sao Paulo for the World Cup?
No.
I'll make that happen.
Cool.
Who?
Yeah. Patrick?
Yeah.
He
We can drink some
Yeah.
cachaça together.
that dude basically made a multi-month trip out of it, and I've
Yeah.
been begging Gasman to write the book, and Gas's answer is, you write the book. And I'm like, I like to write in small chunks, so the books are...
Yeah.
He, by the way, asked what awkward thing was going to happen tonight because he wanted to know exactly when that was going to happen so he could tune in.
And I told
Yes.
him. I told him
Yeah.
it was when I introduced myself.
I'm just glad it wasn't during the goal call
I
challenge.
think it might.
I was about to say the
you got
embarrassing moment
smoked.
is when you thought
that was not a good showing.
So this isn't a
Yeah.
rapid fire question, but we heard that you are a huge fan of Liam Ridgewell.
Oh. We go way back.
Oh boy.
And by way back, I mean about 2.5 weeks
Oh.
to Arizona. So was down in Tucson for a little preseason action, as we tend to do. And I'm going to give too much backstory here, but back when I was in college, I didn't go to a university that had a notable sports. It was a nerd school,
So it was
not a
Wazoo.
sports school. It
Rutgers?
was basically Rutgers.
Community college.
I don't know. I was told that that's a thing. So
What? Mike Leach.
we would sit like courtside at basketball games, and we would each pick an opposing team's player to find very specific heckles for them. And so
I'm
we
a
would
huge
find
fan of this activity.
local articles in their home newspapers and this kind of thing. Preferentially things that would mention other interests, family members, whatever.
This could almost be a Will Ferrell movie, by the way.
Oh my
Right?
God.
Like
Yeah.
a buddy comedy where, let's just go to this random basketball game and insult people.
Yeah.
But
so
with specific.
Yeah.
So we would each pick a different player, and that was the player we would do homework on. And whenever that player had the ball, it was that person's job to yell very specific heckles. Nothing offensive, nothing that's going to get you kicked out, right? Nothing profane. And in the Sounders Timbers match down there in Tucson, Ridgewell was being just an obnoxious ass.
He was wiping his ass with money. Oh,
Well,
wait, no,
also
that's a
that,
different story.
but every little time that a Sounders player touched someone from the Timbers, he was yelling and protesting and throwing a little hissy fit and basically just being a little bitch. And so I thought, this is someone who I need to kind of tap back into my roots for, and maybe try to find a very specific heckle just for this moment. So I did a cursory Google search and found the name of his mother. Now, I don't remember what it is, to be honest, and literally anyone could reach
Was
into
it
their
Helen?
pocket right now. It was probably Helen.
Tom and I both immediately reached for our phones.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm like literally like 30 seconds. This is the amount of effort that this would take on anyone with a phone in their pocket right now.
Dox him, is what you're saying.
No, I literally Googled his name and mother, and there's like articles about how proud she is and all this stuff, which is great. She should be proud, and I'm not saying she shouldn't. Right? She really seemed like a lovely woman in these articles. Well, so all I did was at a time when play was kind of a little bit away, when I knew that he could hear what I had to say, I yelled something more or less to the effect of, "Do you want me to say hi to Helen later?"
You're my hero.
At which point he turned, looked, and said, "Who?" And maybe he wasn't sure which Helen I was referring to. So I said, "Your mother." Now, I did not say, I'm going to fuck your ma, or nothing crude, nothing profane, nothing. I merely asked if he wished me to pass on his regards later. That was all. And he comes running from, halfway across the pitch, runs over the sidelines. Now, for anyone who hasn't been to Tucson, they play on pretty small, you can get right up to the pitch. I mean, there's the sideline, and here's a 2.5 foot little fence.
So the front
So
row
it's little
Starfire.
portable fences.
Yeah, like front row at Starfire, exactly. And I'm standing at that fence, and he comes running right up. Now I take a step back because I'm not sure if he's gonna just dive over the thing at me or whatever. And he comes right up to the edge of it, and just starts yelling, "What did you say?" And I said, "There's a match going on." And their play was literally still happening, and their center defenders over here literally on the sideline. I said, there's a match going on. He's like, "Say it again, say it again," and just keeps yelling this in my face. And I'm like, "There's a match going on." He's like, "What did you say?" And I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to antagonize the guy. I'm not trying to, now if he were to throw a swing, I would be more than happy to take his money. But also get him ejected and maybe deported. Would have been just fine, but he didn't. But that wasn't even
Trump's
the point.
America.
Literally at this point, the sheriffs are coming over, and they weren't that far, and they come over, and as they come up, he starts to back away because he realizes, okay, maybe I shouldn't be escalating this with a fan right now on the sideline. And all I could think was, this motherfucker was in the EPL.
He heard.
You have heard so much worse.
Seriously.
So much worse than this. And like I said,
MLS got him soft, bro.
Nothing.
Portland.
Nothing. And this
Snowflake.
guy was red in the face, ready to just
Is he the one
take
that
a
had the
swing.
DUI last year? Or
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that he would not have absolutely kicked my ass. I'm pudgy and out of shape and haven't thrown a punch in, it's been at least 2 or 3 days. And so, unquestionably, he would have knocked me the fuck right out.
So when you were, for those watching at home, Ridgewell actually demanded the center ref stop the game for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
If you remember that.
Yeah, he ran over. He's like, "Hey," and he was pointing over at me.
Oh
And
my God.
I literally, because I knew Doc was there,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Do you know what happened?"
I'm like, well,
It might have been me.
yeah, that was me.
You were
Linda.
So I'm just
Her name
saying,
is
They were
Linda.
by chance.
I'm just
Linda.
saying,
Linda.
It's Linda.
oh, well, there you go. See, I'm just saying, if anyone's ever, within earshot of him, apparently it's really easy to get a rise
triggered
out of him.
easily.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean,
That's a sign
that
for a
would be
two-ball.
up there with when we sang swipe right for me, Michelle.
Oh my God!
After he
yes.
was swiping
Yes.
right and chatting with
Yeah.
several
friends of the show.
friends
on
of
the
the show.
Tinder.
Now, let's be clear. I am not advocating saying anything untoward toward it or about his mother.
Just her name.
I literally only said, "Do you want me to say hi to her later?" That's it. And
I'm just saying,
You can take
If
that
we
how
had
you
1,000 people
you
saying
can
it
take that how you will, but oh man, it really got under his skin.
1,000 people saying it once when he's defending the bromand.
I mean,
Linda.
do with this. Oh shit!
When homie is up there taking a penalty, shit is on.
And so I have a good transition question. What is your
Thanks, Doc.
what is your favorite pickup line?
We're moving on. What's your favorite pickup line?
Oh, I'm dead
His
if I go
favorite
to
pickup line
Portland.
is, I'm not trying to say anything untoward about your mom.
I'm just asking if you want me to say hi later.
Yeah, yeah. She's British. We might just grab tea. Yeah.
I'd
What
like a
is happening?
Spaten Oktoberfest.
Not a
Please.
boy.
Doc.
No, two. Yeah. Fuck that tea bullshit.
I'll take one more.
Speaking of tea, how was tea with Linda?
We never met up.
Oh,
I know.
Favorite pickup line. What's your best pickup line?
I'm a doctor, but I won't tell you my name.
Is that how he got you?
yes.
He's a surprisingly gentle kisser. Scruffy is all getting that I like, but it's
He
you know.
moisturizes though.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's
Anyway,
that beard oil.
best pickup line.
I honestly don't think I have one.
What's a pickup line you would use? Lynn.
Liam says hi. Liam sends his
Oh.
regards. I don't know. Shit.
I can't decide if this is escalated or
I know, I'm like-
de-escalated right now.
If you could eat tacos al carbon or al pastor with any current Sounders player, who would it be?
Ooh, okay. Now that's a good question.
And not those Central America al pastor with no pineapple, because I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
.org.
Fuck, man. There's a bunch
on
of
the
them. I know, man. Like the first question that actually I have to think about. The rest I had on the quickness.
Questions aren't hard enough, guys.
No. I'm like Tupac or Biggie. You don't have to think about that shit. That's Tupac. Lit Arrow.
Or Liam's mom.
Yeah. I was thinking about Ozzy or Torres, where I was back and forth between those three. Torres also because I want to ask him if I don't know how much English he actually speaks, but I'm pretty sure he was just fucking with one of the trainers when he was pretending to not understand what she was saying.
He absolutely strikes me as someone who would do that.
Yeah.
He probably understands everything.
Yeah.
He may not speak it, but he absolutely knows what he's doing.
He kept turning over and looking at Ozzy, and Ozzy would translate something for him. And this is when they were both just sitting on the side icing stuff during practice, or when everyone else is practicing. And I'm just like, yeah, he's like, what? Oh, okay, yeah. And I'm like, I think he's fucking with her. I don't know.
Totally.
I'm pretty sure. I know, right?
It's weird thinking of Ozzy translating because I remember when, even the simplest thing, he'd just be like,
I don't remember that. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
because
Since
09,
2 days ago.
10, 11.
He ccame over afterwards and wanted to high five you after you destroyed Ridgewell.
I don't think it registered for the other players. I think they were
just knew the
actually
play
playing.
stopped.
They were like, "Yo, there's a center back out of position. Let's do something
I know.
with that."
Where were you? Where were you? He was talking about my mama, man. He was talking about my mama, man.
What words or phrases do you overuse?
I don't know. Can we play the podcast back and see what I said too much of?
I mean, we could do that.
yeah,
but we're not going to.
I don't know. It varies. I'll hear something and just say it a bunch for a few days, and then get tired of myself saying it and be like, oh, everyone else has probably been really
That's
suffering.
my problem.
Yeah.
This week it's yawn. And it's Monday, and I've already overused it.
Yeah, by the time you realize
You
you've
already got
overused a
called
thing,
out on
it's
it.
way too late.
It's
way too late
unfortunate.
at that point. Everyone else hates you by then.
Me?
No, just like by the time you realize you're
Oh.
overusing the word, everyone's like, yeah, we've noticed you've overusing that word for way too long
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
By the time you know it.
So, Doc, what advice would you give yourself in 2008?
Well, 2008, I was. No, 2008's fine. Yeah. 2008, I was still married, so I feel like the answer to that writes itself.
I
wasn't married in 2000.
I was at that time still married.
That
The first time.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you got?
Oh,
Oh, to answer that,
Yeah.
like more specifically,
Yeah.
I would have been like, dude, this is gonna end it quicker. Because the earlier you get out, if you know it's gonna end, the better.
Yeah.
Like if you know, then just do it.
And if you don't know,
Now
Now
you
you
know.
know.
Conduct glory.
So in the chat, we were asked if you had to choose between eating a burger or a 2-topping pizza every day for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
same
It could
two
be
toppings.
Any 2 toppings on a pizza, but you can't change them.
Canadian
or a
bacon and
burger of a
pineapple.
specific style, forever, every day.
And it has to be that same style burger,
Yeah.
every day.
pizza,
Which pizza and which toppings?
pepperoni, mushroom.
yes. He all right.
Fungus.
He has shitty
It's
tasting
the
cookies.
rats of the vegetable world.
Hey. He already has
He's
shitty
a doctor.
tasting
He
cookies.
studied these things.
I mean, are we gonna really start talking about mushrooms right now?
I mean,
Not a fan of mushrooms.
What's your favorite
Dave,
documentary?
Max
Favorite
just tuned
documentary?
in. Has anyone asked about Mark's rash? The best part is I actually legit believe Max has not been watching and didn't know that you brought that up earlier on your own.
So when you play D&D,
Which either means A, Max has intimate knowledge
Of Mark's rash?
Where do you think I got it?
You've just ended that conversation, so we're gonna move on. Dave.
so back to the rapid fire questions. When you play D&D,
Never
do you
share
always
a
play the
hot tub
cleric
with Max.
or do you play something else?
I
Play D&D?
was gonna say, I'm like, I don't think I've actually ever played.
When you
But for
judge
the-
other people
So-
who've played D&D,
Back to the question. I
Sorry,
thought.
World of
what
Warcraft.
derogatory terms do you use about them?
I can't say I've thought about that.
Oh, wow.
Favorite
Tank,
documentary?
healer.
I'm blanking on the name of it, but there was a documentary about an orca that like got stranded up in British Columbia and like was like super lonely and like because it lost its pod and like befriended people there, and then there was this whole like thing about what they should do with it, and some of the fishermen wanted to kill it and people wanted to like sell it off to like a SeaWorld equivalent and all stuff, and it's I think on the Netflix. No, not
No.
Blackfish. It's a different one.
Saving Luna, a whale story.
I think so. I think there's a couple different
You
ones about
typed in
that, but yeah,
whale
it's on the
Seriously, like,
yeah
Blackfish has nothing
dude,
to do
the
with that.
internet has ruined
yeah.
all of us.
I mean, I'm a big fan of orcas. I think they're
Linda.
You
freaking
collect
amazing,
them.
and so
Yeah, that's
You
the
keep
one.
them in your
Saving Luna
backyard.
is a feature-length
Yeah.
documentary about
Yeah,
a lone baby
yeah.
killer whale who gets separated from his family in
Yeah.
a remote Vancouver
yeah,
island.
that's the
Resort.
one. That's the one.
So, Saving Luna.
That's some shit right there.
Go and check that
That'll
shit out.
that'll choke you up
You have traveled a little bit.
a bit.
What trip do you recommend everybody else here take?
Besides the World Cup, of course.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So
I mean-
back to those mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done, you. Points to Gryffindor.
That's why we keep him around.
Yeah.
He's
Uh,
definitely not.
No, he's
Gryffindor.
not a fucking Gryffindor. I
No,
don't
he's
know.
definitely Hufflepuff.
Let's just be clear.
Very clear about
He's
that.
definitely Hufflepuff.
I was about to say Hufflepuff. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story.
Wow, that's some nerd shit. I literally like just saw that Harry Potter play, so I have like Harry Potter on the brain. So
The one in London?
Yeah, that's the one.
Was it
The
good?
8th year,
It's
but not actually the
it's
8th year.
kind of super spectacular.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'd read the thing.
I think I
it's-
own the script, but-
yeah, I've read that. But that's what I'm saying. Like even knowing the story and like having read it, the production on this is it hurts my brain.
But
Wow.
it's
Okay.
a theater. It's a play or a
It's a play.
musical.
It's a
It's a play.
it's a
It's
play.
basically not a
basically
musical.
it's Harry's
Can't
kid.
watch any
Yeah.
of the musical anymore.
Yeah, no, like to the point where like there's music playing and like people come on stage and you're like mentally ready for them to burst into a song. You're like, all right, they're gonna start singing, and they don't. Yeah, like there's not singing.
Goodness.
You should
God.
go to London and see that.
So I mean, I'm torn between 3 places. Oaxaca is
We should go to New York. And see that.
stunning and phenomenal.
You may have to swing
It's on my
and
list.
You may
Ja-
have to make swing
Japan is right up there, and Kenya was spectacular. I mean, just seeing literally like lions and leopards and elephants from
Oh,
here
my.
to the other end of
Yeah.
that. Not even that far.
Did you
Like
go
here
on,
to the
like,
end
a-
of the porch.
Did you do
thing
like
here.
a guided thing?
Like 20
or
feet.
like have people?
I had like a guide
Yeah.
who drove me around
I
and was
travel
like, "That's
a
what
fair
that
amount.
is. That's what that is."
Africa is the place that I'm not the guided person for anything. Africa is the place that I'm
Yeah.
like, yes,
Yeah.
pay whatever it costs.
Yeah, I mean, if you go
It looks
in
beautiful.
the off season, like, and just kind of like look up whenever that is, like now, it's dirt cheap to get a private guide
Did
because
you
there's like a bunch that are not working right now.
Right.
So
go up the mountain?
I did not go up the mountain. That's you're talking about Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
you
not
gotta
to the very top. I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
think
from
you did that sort of
from
thing.
the
But did
Tanzania
you?
side, that's where you go. That's the side people usually climb from. So if I
But I mean,
get
like to the foothills and into the highlands. or?
I was in the valley floor from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mark said something in my ear that I actually don't have a response for,
not a
Which
surprise.
is
and I hang out with him a lot.
Damn.
You said
He
He
lives
was like,
he lives
oh,
on
the
your
off
couch.
season, you know, like the rainy season.
Mark, dude.
Dude, Cape Town has a specific day at which the water runs out.
Well, no, but he's talking Kenya. Like there is a rainy season.
I know, but
He's listened to Toto.
I have.
it's just funny. It's just funny because Mark's like, what's the weirdest thing I can possibly say
that.
about Africa? And I didn't say racist. I said weird.
Hey, real quick, my friend Rob just texted me and asked what to do with like really high proof rum, 73%, and I'm gonna recommend just make a daiquiri with that.
Neat.
No, so at 73%, you don't want that neat.
I mean, you
That's-
could have it.
You could. He tried that. That's what he said.
I did that
tried
once
it neat with
at the Dunbar
Tried it
room.
with a rock. It burned my esophagus, which is 73%. Yeah, cut that down to like 60%. You're probably golden. I'm just saying, like, daiquiri, son. It's
That's
easy.
a good question, but like
Yeah.
a good daiquiri.
That's
not
the
like
other thing
No,
that
no,
I
no,
really
the
should
proper-
lean on
no,
Doc
no, rum,
on more
rum,
often.
lime, sugar.
That was a
call it
good
done.
pivot, by the way.
What's
His
your go-to cocktail for a first date?
first date.
For a first date?
Yeah.
Like, I'm on a first date and I'm going to order a cocktail?
Yeah.
I mean,
Chloroform.
I'm gonna drink my go-to cocktail regardless if it's the first date or not. So that's an Amaro sour.
Ooh.
What kind of Amaro?
It depends. If I trust the place, I leave it up to the mechanic. I don't tell a mechanic how to fix my car. I don't tell a bartender how to fix my drink. But if I don't totally know the place, I'll go with Ramazzotti because they probably have it and they probably are familiar enough with it to make a good sour with it.
He can spend as much time talking liquor as
Dude, he's our
Anything
booze
else,
doctor.
like-
Yeah. I mean, we can
We
line up
needed
like
that.
mezcal flights and whiskey flights sometimes.
I-
Booze
I'm just
doctor.
saying.
I want to say one of the sipping tequilas he had me enjoy was something about
Aren't
like
they
a
all sipping
20-year
tequilas?
age.
From a tequila standpoint,
Said
Maybe
we
it was
get
a mezcal.
Jose Cuervo.
yeah. I mean, I've got like
Everybody makes
like
mistakes,
an
Hugo.
11-year-old mezcal, but usually, I mean, mezcal's not traditionally aged,
It's
but I
all
mean,
they had
aged
in
in
the
glass
bottle.
perhaps. But we can talk mezcal for a very long time.
Hugo.
And one of the whiskeys that
Well, yeah.
he gave me a whiskey that I'm still stunned.
Because Hugo is still mad at me for buying a liter and a half of Jose in Puerto Vallarta.
For the
Gold.
table.
Because it's literally all they had to buy shots for
Let's
18
just set the
people.
scene a little bit. So we're
The
in,
shore was
we're
eroding.
in Old Town Puerto Vallarta,
The shore was eroding.
and we're at one of the beach bars, which,
Was
in
there-
like any town, You can find good stuff if you know how to ask for it. And there's a table, what was it, 5 tables worth of people.
18 people.
SonarFeed is live at this here. We're in Mexico, and I roll up after being like 2 hours south of town for the day. Roll up, and at the head of the table are 2 people who are tequila drinkers. And they're literally staring at Mark. As
Glaring
a
at Mark.
liter and a half of gold is brought out, and then glasses are put
Last time
down
I
in
drank
front
that,
of
I was
everyone.
16, drinking it with
And
such
they're
delight.
literally just like this.
Right.
And
I
then
haven't touched Sunny D's.
from there, we literally called Aaron Riley in the middle of SonarFeed,
And checked in.
and then he hung up the phone on us.
Rightfully so.
And then Mark left with what, half a bottle?
Half a bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, in your backpack.
Talk about
No, I thought I was
Yeah.
just
life
carrying the handle.
mistakes. Oof.
Yeah. Anyway, so that happened. So
So is it?
you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know what time you guys usually wrap this
Usually in 5 to
Okay.
5 to 35
minutes.
minutes.
up. Okay. I just
If
for
you're
what-
just like a fish lock, we wrap up in
Ooh,
90
I got
more
a good
minutes.
One, though. I got a good one.
for what it's worth, just I mean, we can do that because you've had the best question so far. That made me like think for a moment.
This one's-
Also-
Did it make up for earlier?
Did it make up for earlier? Like when I
Yeah.
beat him like a little bitch at the goal contest?
Yeah.
He doesn't need to make up for that. He just needs to do
I'm
better.
not gonna say shit. This is so special.
Say whatever you want. I'll
So-
just say it for longer.
I'll throw out
So
another
anyway, you were
question.
saying.
I was just gonna say there are other busted players that I can like throw 2 cents in about.
Let's do it.
But-
Oh, yeah.
but what was your
I'll
question?
That. No, the question.
No, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's juicy.
Moving on.
All right. Other injured players. Do you have them listed, or do you want us to just name them? And
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about ugly players and their like facial deficits.
No, he already talked about Liam.
You said.
Linda,
Anyway, so busted
Dinner's-
players.
Other broken players.
We
So-
should call Doc in the middle of the show every week and just
go,
bring him in and be like,
Linda.
"Who's injured this week?"
Patch him in. I can patch him in. I got that.
And then he's going to say shitty things.
Yeah. If you ever want me to break your heart, you just give me a call or
Dave,
read
this
Dave's
is,
text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll need some. We'll need some.
Actually, can we
theme
call you
music.
and you could just read Dave's
The
text?
great part is, what's the replay on that? I'm like, I'm at the game. Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
It's like a home game, but he's not home, so he's like, you're watching it on TV, right? I didn't see the replay. I'm like,
Yeah.
All right, so busted players.
So, Ozzy. So, when we were back down, and this is kind of going back 2.5 weeks ago in Arizona, players that weren't participating fully in practice: Dempsey, Ozzy, Torres. So Ozzy was, he's icing up his right thigh. He wasn't playing preseason minutes. He's still not active. It makes me wonder if he's got. Have they said anything specific about
Just
the
that-
nature of his injury?
right quad strain.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all we got. Is
But
those
that's what I'm
three.
saying, like anything more that they say. Yeah. So he was. I mean, so he was still doing that. I mean, he was. He was touching the ball and doing some stuff, but I think it's probably going to be another. If I had to give a best guess, another at least, I would say 6-ish weeks.
That's a
Eight
really
weeks.
long time.
Though, because that means it's been forever since last season.
Off mic, one of the live attendees wants to know, what did he do?
I suspect he tore his quad and then re-injured it at some point in part of the recovery process and had a setback. Because I would have expected him to have been fully participating, at least, just based on what we knew then. But the fact that he wasn't makes me think that he was recovering and had a little minor, twinge of it and, set him back a little bit. And so they're probably going to be a little more conservative so that when they, again, same thing, so that when they do bring him back that you don't have to worry about that. I know they said Dempsey was a healthy scratch and he did play, minutes before. But between his ankle and his groin, he was, icing stuff up. And I'm thinking, he probably again had some minor tweak of that, and it may have been the sort of thing where he easily could have just called up the coaches and said, hey, I'm feeling it a little bit more this week. And they said, let's, technically we could play you. It's not, an injured scratch, but I mean, again, he's going to feel stuff earlier. Torres was, between the balance work that he was doing suggested that, some of it might have been ankle, some of it might have been knee, the same types of things he was doing, but he was doing some pretty farther along stuff there. So I don't think that he's someone that we're going to not see for long.
Schmetzer did say he could be back as early as this week.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, like I wouldn't. I'm not worried too much that we didn't see him already. I think that the fact that we had the result that we did, I think they'll probably want to shore up the defense a bit more, and if they can, they'll put him in. But I said, just based on kind of the types of things he was doing and all that, I think he'd probably. There's a good chance we see him on Thursday. Leardom, I don't really know. Do we know anything about that?
It was like an ankle knock is kind of what they're using. So like a contact ankle injury.
I mean,
and that's one of those things that could be just a bad bruise to soft tissue.
Yeah.
And they're not talking about it like bone or anything like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean that's with super limited information. So like my degree of confidence in this would be pretty low, but just with that and the fact that he was jogging but not doing more, I would say probably 4 weeks. But that's just without knowing anything more than kind of what he's doing in practice and the information they're giving us.
Which isn't a lot these days. They have been, as an organization about everything, they're much more controlling of what's out there, whether it's player transfer rumors or medical information.
We're going to go NHL, where it's like upper body injury, and someone's got like 9 broken ribs. And
you say missing an arm.
Yeah.
So, I was like, yeah.
Lower body
I feel like
injury.
that should be a Saturday Night Live skit.
And it's like 3 broken bones. And you're like, oh, lower body. Okay. Thanks for narrowing it down.
I mean, your best thing, if you've got someone with eyes on practice, right? I mean, your best thing is, are they doing, are they jogging? Are they running full speed? Are they doing lateral movement? Are they touching a ball? Are they doing drills with the ball, like that are more advanced, or literally just some real basic stuff? I mean, that's kind of your standard progression, right? And so, just kind of depending on where someone is with that, they may progress through that in a matter of a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or again something much bigger. That's when you start looking at
I've
months
seen
to a year.
guys wear the neutral shirt for like a week and a half.
Yeah,
where like they're doing everything, but nobody is supposed to touch them. And it's kind of weird when it lasts that long, because that they're not necessarily the confidence in them being healed at that point. You're like, oh, if somebody touches them, they're broken again.
Yeah. Well, so that generally to me would read as a good sign that they're comfortable putting them doing drills and exercises more quickly than they would be otherwise. But just time-wise and just the body's healing speed-wise, they know that they need more time before they could kind of handle the wear and tear of more. And so they're able to start doing a bit more with them, but still kind of keeping them out of contact or risk of re-injury just based on time out from injury. So that's, to me, that actually probably reads as a good sign.
Typical is like a 2 or 3 day period like that. When they spend more than a week with the neutral.
Right, but what I'm saying is that to me is they, under normal circumstances, wouldn't have put them in that for another week.
They've come back early.
And they're going to keep them in that neutral jersey for that whole early time, as opposed to another week from now is when they would have come back on schedule, and now they've got 2-3 days like that.
Cool.
So they brought them back early to do more, but still are protecting them because they know they need a little more time out for healing time. But that's my read on it, and that could be totally wrong because again, I mean, I'm not in contact with any of the training staff or anything like that, so that's just my best guess.
I haven't even gotten you to a practice. Like your practices are preseason, so
Yeah,
we'll change that soon.
yeah, let's do that.
On the field. Fake name, real doc reporting.
I mean, I did run onto the field once. That's
Linda.
No, if you go to like my profile on Sound at Heart, Real Doc Fake Name, the picture of me, like my little avatar there is me at like center pitch at halftime in a match when one of the people who runs the center circle out dropped.
I remember that game.
And I was like standing there. My friends are like, "Oh, are you gonna go do a thing?" And I'm like, "Nah, they got people." And like a minute goes by, and I'm like, "Nobody's doing anything." And I'm like,
I
"I'm
should
gonna
run
make
out
my way
there."
down toward the front, but I'm sure by the time I get to like the fence, there will be someone there."
Yeah,
Nobody there. I'm
it
like,
was the
"Well,
next-
guess I'm jumping the fence." Ran out there, and for literally the only time in my life I have ever said this phrase, when the sheriff came running over to stop the person from running out of the field, I said, "It's okay, I'm a doctor."
Yes.
Never said it before, never said it since, and they were like, "Okay."
I remember that because that person was down for quite a while,
Yeah.
and nobody was helping them.
Right. And yeah. I was like, I literally, like, in the back of my mind as I'm running out there, I'm thinking, like, I'm about to start doing CPR in front of 40,000 people.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
By the way, are you a big fan of the pump only CPR?
Ooh.
Damn, that's a big
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, that is a big question. I am.
Because it's simpler for
Well, so yeah, so to everyone
us
listening,
more.
if you are like, if someone drops and does not have a pulse, like, I'm not sure if they have a pulse. If you're not sure they have a pulse, they don't have a pulse, as far as I'm concerned. Like, don't sit there for like a few minutes being like, I wonder, I still don't know if they have, like, no. If they have a pulse and you start doing chest compressions, they will stop you.
Stop doing that, Adam.
Yeah. But unless you have what's considered a, quote, advanced airway, which is a thing we like medics would do, or in a hospital, but unless you have an advanced airway, the time that you would, quote, waste trying to get breaths into someone is literally time wasted in terms of blood getting to the brain. So you want to just keep doing chest compressions. Like, literally, that's all I would have done. Like, in that situation, as a outside of the hospital, like in the middle of CenturyLink on the field, I would have literally just done chest compressions until medics showed up.
Because that's the new. I listen to way too much radio, and so if you listen to radio late at night, you get a lot of like health promos, and one of them now is just give chest compressions. The new method of CPR.
I'm just
is
happy you moved on from Art Bell.
That's been standard of care outside of America for years.
For a minute. Yeah.
Years.
You have to remember, like my last
Yo, we
medical
go
training,
deep
I
on
was in the
SonarFeed.
Army, and
Yeah.
it was a
Dropping
little bit different
knowledge.
then.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago, so.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, that's up. Like, if people still teach rescue breathing and, you know, CPR with breaths. But if you were outside of America, what they would have taught you was to not do that. Because if you have someone who stops breathing, they have so much residual oxygen still in their lungs. The more important thing, I would rather you get blood to the brain of someone that has low amount of oxygen than blow 21% or less oxygen into their lungs, which is what you're doing with your breath. Your exhaled breath is not that much oxygen. It's less than 21% ambient air. You blow a bit of air in there, that's great. That's your exhaled breath. Leave their own exhaled breath in there and just bellows that shit.
Right. Because they're
Dropping knowledge on SonarFeed.
They're not breathing
So-
either way. I would rather you pump blood to their brain because it takes a few pumps to get enough pressure built up to get blood up to the brain.
Well, and from a permanent damage standpoint.
And that's where, if you get them
Solve
back,
that.
that's the thing that causes the problem later is the brain damage.
Yeah.
If you get them back, it's did you get blood to their brain?
Adam off camera is just pointing at Mark. And Mark is going to beat the shit out of Adam.
You know, that's not funny considering I've been dead twice.
Yeah. So we're gonna just move
what?
on.
I've had heart surgery twice.
Yeah.
Go on. No, another time.
Yeah.
You can look at his actual no joke scar
Yeah.
later.
But
I've seen.
It's
scars.
just it's interesting
I'm
to
good.
me to see something like that. Having taken classes in multiple decades, learning how that like has evolved and seeing the point where it almost wasn't explained to me the no breath method. It was just like, no, this is better. And I don't know if it was just that people were uncomfortable explaining why, or, you know, in the moment, just go, don't think, do this.
Yeah. Well, and people's inclination to like, here's someone who just like collapsed in front of me. I don't know that person. People will be less hesitant to do chest compressions if they're not thinking like, well, if I don't also like, you know, do mouth to mouth. And so turns out it's actually better if you even don't.
Nice. Noted.
Follow up on this, because you probably know the answers better than us. Let's say somebody like me that's 20 years from having any sort of medical. Where should I go to get that kind of CPR certifications and those kinds of things? Do you know where? Or should I look that up and we'll tweet that out later?
Yeah, I mean, like American Heart Association is who does like the official like here, like if you want like CPR certification and that kind of thing, and I'm sure that you could just go to their website and you could find any number of places that will teach you that. But I don't know like one resource off the top of my head.
That's fine. That's better than.
A lot of community colleges offer those types of courses.
I want to say local fire departments, but I'm not.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want, I mean,
Municipalities will do it
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
it's not that it's not that they are offering those courses. It's that they're working with.
AHA.
Yeah, but they're
Or they're making.
So we got a question in the chat
good.
from
It's a
JJ.
good question.
And if you don't have color on this, that's okay. But Kevin Smith, famous
Clerks.
movie person, Kevin Smith. Do you have any opinion on what happened to him and how his life might change?
What?
I mean, all I know is he had a heart attack. I don't know
It
more
was
than
a-
that.
well,
He was,
so-
he was
100%
at
blockage.
an event.
It was a 100% LAD blockage, according to.
And I guess it was
Him.
something where either he or someone else, like in between shows, he was doing an early and a late, like walked off and decided to call it in or go to the doctor or whatever happened. And they basically were like, you would have died if you hadn't done this. And again, like Kevin Smith is not the smallest of people.
He has
and
lost
admitted-
100
admits
pounds.
he
He
has lost a ton of
sure,
weight.
In the
but
last 5
has-
years.
has had some major swings in his life, to the point where it's part of his, commentary on himself and life. But, is that? Do you have a take?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, obviously, if he had like a history of exertional chest pain or if he like saw a doctor and had any number of the other medical conditions that presumably would go with a man of his build, namely like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. But those are things that anyone can very easily get checked at like at a typical physical, a little bit of blood work.
Pick a doc, go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get some marker on one of those tests before you hit 100% blockage of a thing.
Probably. You'll be hard pressed to get me to say guaranteed yes 100% in medicine, but yeah, highly likely that those things will be off. And so
'Cause
before
you-
you get to
yeah, you'd
100%,
have
you're going to
levels.
manage those risk factors. But even then, I mean, you're reducing risk, not eliminating it, right? And so things will still happen to people. And so again, if he had I don't know, but if he had say exertional chest pain or some warning signs before you kind of written off, before the 100% mark, then that's totally possible. But I mean, we see it all the time that like the day someone has a heart attack is the day they have a heart attack,
Right.
And that's then without getting into like the physiology behind that. You can go from, having a 70% blockage to 100% blockage when the plaque that's causing the 70% ruptures, a clot forms right there, and that clot blocks off that blood vessel and becomes 100% like that.
Boom.
And so that's why you got to manage this stuff years in advance, and also
only had one beer?
and
Three
also not
tacos.
smoke.
That's 3 tacos.
I mean,
Smoke.
I don't know if he smoked, but like that. This is my little like 2 cents on that. Like, I tell people all the time if they'll be like, yeah, I quit smoking. I'm like, good. That's the single best thing you could have done for your health because you can beat all my medicine. People are gonna do it. People are also gonna,
You can what? Beat all my medicine?
Yeah, you can. I mean, you can out-eat cholesterol medicine. You can smoke and beat any of the risk reduction that I can do with treating any of your other medical conditions. You will outstrip all of that by smoking. I can give you all the pills in the world, and if you're smoking, you're doing more than all the pills will do. Obviously, both combined is like a thing, maybe come at things from all directions instead of just one. But regardless, there's not for lack of money, that's not a barrier for him getting a doctor, right? He's a white guy with money, you should be able to get a doctor. So presumably he's seen doctors at some point, but lifestyle change is hard. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? You tell someone to lose weight, you tell someone to eat healthy or whatever, shit's hard, and I get that.
Fuck off.
So
maybe spin from this. People have been motivated or demotivated by celebrity and whatnot forever about things. Do you think in today's day and age, something like this, where dude is literally tweeting a picture of himself, like in a bed, where he's like, freak, like the Kevin
I just
Smith
had a massive
face,
heart attack.
like, holy shit, and he's not preaching, and like other people, the Chris Pratts of the world are piling on, making a joke comment that people took one way, but aside from that, I don't want to say do you think things like that are good because they teach people things, but do you think in today's day and age the way celebrity happens is good for someone like yourself because people wake up for a minute?
yeah, and that's the thing. People wake up for a minute, and so if in that minute someone does something actionable, then fantastic, and I think that will help the people who do. So, I mean, I think having a platform with, I don't know how many followers he's got, but saying here.
And I'm not saying good for him, he had to suffer through this.
But good for him for saying, hey, here's a thing that happened. And if that puts it on someone's radar, it's like, you know what, I kind of look like that guy. My build's like that. Then, yeah, maybe I should get my shit checked out. Okay. Yeah, maybe you should. And so that's, like I said, if it motivates some people to do that, then so much the better.
Bonus.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm all for people sharing their stories when they have positions of power and influence and can do that because, yeah, that will help some people push them to do what they need to do.
Adam's off camera, starting to do a little bit of calisthenics.
There was a good NPR story today or yesterday about how people in other countries, the way they bend is completely different from how Americans bend, and that it's contributed to significant back
how
issues.
he bend at the back instead of at the hips?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that for another hour.
Literally ever. So we can have some fun things, but one thing we do like to ask anyone that's taken the time to come on the show, and again, we appreciate you doing this on or off camera. Is there anything you would like to ask our viewers,
or
listeners to
tell us,
or tell us, or share?
Or a fundraiser
It can be as preachy as you want to
be.
be, or it can be yell at Liam Ridgewell every time you see him.
Oh, that's already going to happen.
But no, seriously, do you have anything you'd like to share? You've taken your time. We'll give you whatever soapbox moment you want.
Oh, we're out.
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. I would. I mean, I'm a big fan of mezcal. If you're gonna drink it, this is serious for a second. It's agave spirits are fundamentally different from other spirits, and Dave can attest to the fact that there's literally hundreds of bottles lining my walls. But the agave spirits are something fundamentally different. This is a crop that takes over a decade to mature, and when they harvest it, that plant is dead. And that's so different from an annual crop like barley or corn or absolutely anything else that you ever drink. And so if you're going to drink agave spirits, take a minute to learn about what you're drinking because the people behind it.
I was waiting for it.
There's people who have literally spent a decade or more connected to the earth, and there's big corporate shit like Cuervo Gold, which is a mixto and not even like a proper tequila. But they will use processors like diffusers when they take immature agave and basically they destroy every other plant in the entire area, plant nothing but this one species of agave, which devastates the ecosystem of that area. And then they harvest them super young and run them through an autoclave and a pretty chemical intense process to strip every fermentable sugar out of it instead of getting just the ones that would come out with a more natural process like steaming or roasting. But in doing so, the whole motivation is to churn out product for the cheapest thing, and the impact that has on the land and the agriculture of every other crop in that area is pretty atrocious.
Thanks, Mark.
And so, like I said, if you're going to drink agave spirits, take a minute to learn about it. There's the I don't work with them, but if the I'm going to blank on the name right now. Yep, total blank on the name. Suffice it to say, go to Barrio, which is a bar that I'm
Barrio.
probably
Good
going
call.
to go to after this and go drink some half-priced agave spirits. I don't work for them or with them, and I make no money off of that. That's literally what I'm going to go do. And ask the bartenders there about it because they know their shit and
That's no joke.
we'll tell you about it. Or ask me.
So
I'll nerd
follow-
about that shit
follow
for a long
Mark
time.
question to
calls
that.
it Barrio.
Barrio. It's Barrio. Yeah. I don't actually. Fuck face.
That's a
many
really
times have
And his little
Uh,
brother in the green hat.
Like tequila, actually, like the city of. Actually, only once. Most of the time when I go down, I go to Oaxaca. Yeah, Guadalajara is it's a beautiful area in Jalisco and the whole state, but I've
Shit,
not
team.
spent as much time there.
Forgiven for embarrassing me on our own podcast.
You did
You're all
get
good now.
you did get fucking
I
torched,
did.
dude.
So follow-up question on that is, as a medical professional and clearly a socially conscious person, what are your thoughts on organics? So I work for a produce company. You probably see our trucks driving around.
That word is essentially meaningless.
Right.
The concept is admirable, but that word has effectively lost all meaning in this country.
I would absolutely agree with you.
We don't have a substitute
seeing what
for
I've
it.
seen.
We don't have a substitute word that does mean something, unfortunately. Maybe someday we will, but we don't. And so, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But, organic doesn't mean shit.
Boom.
David.
But it probably grew with some shit.
Probably not.
I'll
No,
be in the
fish
town of
emulsion.
tequila in 2 weeks.
You
David.
failed.
I don't really have anything else.
When are you coming back? When's your next show? That's my next question.
Was I supposed to have something else?
Can we have it back next week? Can we have it back next week?
One last question. This is like that easy.
Her name was
song.
Linda.
Linda.
What's your
That's my fucking legacy.
What's your
on the show
karaoke?
right now. Everyone's like, fuck
Oh,
that
yeah.
ACL talk.
karaoke go to? What's your karaoke go to?
My karaoke go-to is Clarence Carter's Strokin'.
Do we get to hear it tonight?
No.
Okay. Had to ask.
He's got to get to Barrio.
Hasn't had enough
He already
mezcal.
said that. He's like
yeah,
on a
Mario
deadline.
closes at 11.
All right, so Thursday, 7:30.
7.
CCL Santa Tecla. Fuck 'em.
Yeah.
Fuck
Take 'em
them.
all.
Sunday,
Kill them all.
LAFC.
Go for the kill. I mean.
let's go for the kill. Like, not go for the Chivas USA.
Go
No,
for
let's
the
go
krill.
with the Metallica song.
Go for the krill. Sammy.
Go for the krill.
That's also still
Sammy
okay.
the Sounder.
Go for the krill.
Oh wait, but he's not a krill sound.
Yeah. Anyway,
that.
Sunday, LAFC.
Maybe without Carlos Vela.
You want to give us a
Not
LFG?
maybe. I thought that was more than a maybe.
Let's fucking go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's make predictions.
For both?
Oh.
Yeah.
Why not? 2-0 Thursday.
And 2-0 Sunday.
David.
1-0 Thursday, which does advance. And probably 3-1 Sunday.
3-1. Doc.
1-0 Thursday, 2-1 Sunday.
Tom?
I'm gonna say 1-0 Thursday, 3-0 Sunday.
Okay.
Because fuck LAFC.
2-0 on Thursday. Sunday, 5-0 Dempsey hat trick.
Thursday, I'm going to go with 1-0. And then Sunday, it's going to be close, but then in one end, we're going to score 5 and end up winning 10-7.
Just end the show right now. We're out.